nerds, welcome to another episode of the Nerd Rundown Presents. On today's show, we're going to go over the not so top 10 nerd debates.
Oh, hold up. I would say these are the top 10 nerd debates.
Don't start already. Let's just
get into the show. I'm ready to go.
Let's just get into the show first before you do this.
All right.
Okay.
All right,
so before I was so rudely interrupted, let me introduce my cohort here. I'm joined today by the man, Big Morg 3000, Morgan Santo. Say hi to everybody there, Morg.
Well, hello. I'm also going to be known today as the guy that's right.
You wish. You wish. Actually, I have a feeling we'll probably agree on a lot of this stuff, but we'll kind of flesh it out. So we put together a fun top 10 list for everybody. We were kind of prowling around the internet and found a top 10 list of nerd debates that probably need to die. So we shoplifted that a little bit and then kind of put together some other stuff for ourselves that we wanted to kind of talk about. But let's kind of dive into this, Morg. We're gonna start off with a tough question here. Is Disney too powerful? What do you think?
All right, I'll start. Are they too powerful? So I want to preface this by saying that's tough to answer because instinctually I want to say yes, because they have a lot. I mean, it's Disney. There's a lot they do that people don't know. There's a lot they do that everybody knows.
Yeah.
I want to say yes, they are. I think I'm going to go yes. Now, while I say yes, I can also appreciate that they are, because I would love for all of my Marvel content, the MCU, so the movies, to be owned by Disney. So I want them to have Daredevil, Punisher, Spider-Man, X-Men. I want them to have it all, so I can have that universe the way I want when I go to see the movies.
Sure.
But I also understand the fear of having a company that's powerful, because Disney just owns so much that they can do whatever they want, and that could spell trouble. So I'm going to say yes, they are too big and too powerful.
Yeah. I want to agree with you. I really do. But then I'm hesitant to agree, because I think they've been smart in their acquisitions. The recent acquisition of Fox to bring in the X-Men and stuff like that, those types of properties. But there's a lot of other stuff out there that Fox owns that, that they pulled in that could be pretty amazing franchises for them to kind of work off of. Disney does a good job. They do a great job of producing and putting out great content. Everything from Pixar to the MCU stuff. Really the only stinkers that they've done at this point has been Star Wars has not turned out how they expected Star Wars to turn out, at least from the movie perspective.
Right, and the movies are fixing that, or the shows are fixing that. Yeah,
the TV shows I think are fixing that. At least The Mandalorian is. Boba Fett, I think, is getting kind of mixed reviews. I think there's a lot of people who are kind of struggling. I have not watched it yet, but I think a lot of people are not quite sure where we're going with this. And
I'll say the fourth episode makes it a little bit better.
Okay. So I think Disney owns what they need to own. I really do. I don't know. Pixar is associated with Disney, but it's not a Disney property anymore. And so I think that's probably pretty good, because Pixar could kind of do their own thing, but they still are kind of hitched their wagon to Disney, and Disney has the ability to have a longer reach when it comes to distribution and all that other stuff.
And to be fair, when people see a Pixar movie, they still assume Disney. Yep. It's a Disney movie, even though it's separated. When they see Pixar, because of the animation style, they think, it's Disney.
Yeah. So, Disney has I think the thing that makes this hard for people is that Disney has been around for a really, really long time. And I think that's the thing that really makes it difficult for people to kind of separate is, a lot of these big production companies, they don't last that long, even, like you have like Warner Brothers, you have Fox, Paramount Pictures, that type of stuff, but the big production houses, there's not a lot of them out there, and Disney's, just one of them. So I think they've got what they need to have, and it'll kind of dovetail into our next question, which is, and you kind of alluded to it already, but I will say before we finish here that I feel Disney is right where it needs to be right now, because and I'll kind of rewind.
So you say not too big and powerful at this moment. At
this particular moment, I think, and the main reason for that is, I took the family to Disney World in July of this year, and I gotta say,
Florida or California?
That's the one in Florida, and so I gotta say, it was pretty doggone neat to have all these like really great franchises in one place. Like I could go to Animal Kingdom and check out the Avatar ride. That ride was friggin' amazing. And even though I'm not that big of a fan of the movie, it was still pretty cool. And then I go over to Hollywood Studios, and they've got the Star Wars, stuff, and the Star Wars stuff was super cool. And then they've got the Toy Story land there, and and then you go to the Magic Kingdom, and they've got all kinds of
Do they still have the Honey I Shrunk the Kids area?
You know what? I don't.
I enjoyed that area.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't remember seeing it. I don't think anybody remembers that movie.
Guess it's not. Yeah, I guess.
Which is a tragedy, because I actually have made my kids watch that movie, and they loved it.
Oh, my son has watched it. Yeah.
It's Rick Moranis. How do you not love Rick Moranis? The man is
the dude that punched him in New York.
Even though he's a Canadian, he's an American treasure. He's an amazing guy. So I will say that they're right where they need to be, but I think any further, and I think they would be too powerful. So I'll give you the last word, and we'll.
So it sounds like the verdict is, I would lean towards. I think I would lean in this case cautiously towards too powerful, since you believe they're on the verge.
Yeah.
I think they're there. Then I think it's safe to say, maybe they should calm down, and that's just coming from a pure. My beliefs of I don't want something to get too big, not coming from my nerdum of I want it all in one place.
yeah, and I think you're right. They are on the verge of becoming too powerful, and you get into those stages, and nobody tells you no. And that's that's a bad place to be.
Yeah, that's scary.
That's a bad place to be, because then you get. Then you get the Attack of the Clones, is what you get. So it's not good. All right. So
right into the next one.
Yeah. So and you kind of alluded to this earlier, but should Marvel own all of its properties? Let's kind of talk about, there's a lot of properties out there. There really are. So talk to me about Marvel owning all of its properties.
So
I know we're thinking of one particular individual person who wall crawls and swings.
Yes. My answer is yes. I want Marvel, the movie company, the MCU, to own all of its own crap.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to deal with any of the BS of who gets Spider-Man and who doesn't, who gets this and who doesn't. I want my universes in the Marvel universe. I want it all there. I want them to draw on stuff.
I want it all, and I want it now.
I want it all, and I want it now. It's my Marvel universe, and I want it now. So
you're a toddler?
I want it. J.G. Wentworth. Yeah, because the movies are becoming more like comics, where you're just getting we're getting some crazy crap now.
Yeah,
that really people only thought would work in the comics, and we're getting it. Yeah. I mean, the next big superhero thing coming out is a guy with dissociative identity disorder, Moonlight.
We just talked about Moon Knight. Yep.
Right. And we talked about it in the rundown. And like, that's a guy that nobody had on their radar of, yeah, let's make this a show.
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy. Nobody was like, yeah, let's make that, So I want all of that.
It's almost like every franchise, every property they've got or everything they've got in the bank is going to get a shot. You're going to get a shot. And if it takes off, we'll stick with it. But if it doesn't take off, man, you're out because we got 30 more properties lined up.
To all be there because comics always did that. All the superheroes, everybody had their own story, but the superheroes were always there to do something if they needed to be.
Yeah.
When I see Spider-Man doing something, I'd love for him to run into Iron Man, to Cap. Spider-Man heads over to Brooklyn, runs into Cap. You know what I mean? Right. Like, I want that to be available because that's just how the universes work. I mean, it's hard to explain when you're watching No Way Home, which we all know there's a lot of enemies in that movie. That's not a spoiler.
Yeah.
To not think, really, like, no Avengers are going to help this dude out right now?
Right.
So they're just like, no, Spider-Man, you can save the world. Go ahead. We'll take it, so I like the idea of being able to just have quick cameos of things, whatever it may be. So yeah, I want them to have all the rights so we can get all of that mixed in. None of this BS, Morbius and Venom making their own stuff. I want it to all be together. What do you think?
Yeah. In this case, I do agree with you. I think it's probably in the best interest of everybody that, from a continuity perspective, and kind of going back to our previous one, where is Disney too powerful? When they acquired Fox and they are able to bring in the X-Men. Now all of a sudden, all those characters
that's huge.
Are available to them, that's a huge portion of the portfolio that's been off limits to them, to this point. So I tend to agree with you, and I think you're going to get characters like the OG comic book movie, if you ask me, is Wesley Snipes' Blade. When we're gonna get, and we just talked earlier about Eternals a little bit, and that last scene in Eternals, in the post-credit scene, in that one is, and I'm not gonna tell anybody what happens except for the voice. Yeah. Except for the voice is Mahershala Ali, and he has been cast as the new Blade. So that's pretty awesome, to see that. So I think owning all of their properties from a continuity perspective is going to be great. I think you are gonna see some characters that maybe people will be like, what? Why is that character getting? Like Moon Knight, it's like, okay, well, that's not really a comic book.
Yeah.
I mean, shoot, and I think you could probably thank James Gunn and Chris Pratt and all those guys for the Guardians of the Galaxy, because I mean, honestly, even comic book people didn't really know who the Guardians of the Galaxy were. That was not a franchise that everybody was like, oh man, Star-Lord.
We need Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's like, my favorite are Iron Man, Captain America, and Star-Lord. Like those are my top three. Like nobody's got Star-Lord in their list. So,
and to be fair, even Iron Man wasn't really a top tier superhero at the time. It's just what they could work with at the time.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think that I don't even think that they expected Iron Man to be as good as it was. Jon Favreau and them really did such a great job. So kind of circling back around to the question, I do, and I think we both agree on this one. I do think that having Marvel own all of its properties is a good thing for us. from a comic book fan perspective, and both of us are definitely more of a casual fan than say Darren and Brett and those guys that, they know way more than we do. And I think as a casual fan, I think that actually works in our favor for this particular question, because I don't know the difference between this and that, or as much as those guys do, I don't know the backstory. If Marvel owns all these properties, then it makes it easier for them to tell a tale, and weave all these guys into, and so that I can get more exposure to all the great stuff that Marvel has to offer. So yeah, I think we're both in agreement on that, right?
Yeah,
Perfect.
I mean, so far it sounds like I'm 2-0 as far as I'm concerned on these questions.
I'm apparently I'm 1 for 1, but you know what? I'll catch up with you in the back half here. So, all right. So moving on, question number 3, and this is something we've kind of talked to several times. Number 3 is are DC comic films too dark? And in the rundown, we actually talked about we talked about the runtime coming up on the new Matt Reeves's take on the Batman, which again, I saw a thing on Twitter the other day. Somebody said, with a runtime of 2 hours and 55 minutes, maybe we'll finally get to understand why Bruce Wayne became Batman, and I thought I took a really good chuckle out of that, because, gosh, we haven't seen that,
right,
told 1,000 different ways, so and Reeves even came out recently and said that his take on the Batman is almost like a horror movie. So, I mean, I've said this before. I do think DC films are too dark, but you tell me what you think.
Yeah. I mean, the lighting on them is awful. They need to be brighter. No, I think it's hard because Marvel, obviously, the Marvel.
I just turned the brightness up on my TV, but that's like if you've got lighting problems.
Listen, I have an OLED, so
yeah,
so right. Darks are true darks.
Ooh, somebody's richer
my
than
bougie TV.
Right. Not all of us have movie theater. Oh wait, I do.
They have true dark.
All right, so what am I saying?
No, so it's tough because we always compare when it comes to DC movies. You always compare it to the Marvels. This is what everybody does. You can't help it.
Yeah,
Marvels are a lot lighter.
Yeah,
they got more comedy in it. They got more. It's more for a general audience.
Right.
DC movies have not been, and that's pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
Now I will say this is something I think we do disagree on. I am fine with DC being darker.
Yeah.
But the problem is they need to either shit or get off the pot.
Yeah.
They got to commit to that or not. That's the you got to pick the path at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm fine with them being darker if they do it right. The biggest problem with DC is they need to take the playbook from Marvel of connecting everything and doing it right.
Yeah.
At this point, we would accept if it takes you 10 years to really build something like Marvel did, we'll accept it at this point. We don't care. Yeah. That's what we want. So I'm fine with dark. They just need to build it right. And like this new Batman, from what I hear, a lot of people were shocked it's not rated R. And that's coming from people that saw the early screen test. So I'm fine with dark. You just got to do it right and build the universe. That's what I want from them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think starting with, so going back to DC, DC films, the newer DC films have been pretty dark. The Nolan trilogy, I don't think was too dark. The Dark Knight the Dark Knight was disturbing in parts, but it wasn't too dark. It wasn't until we got into sort of the Snyder the Snyderverse, when we started moving into those films, and even I don't think that they are. I'm kind of split on it. I really am. It makes it a little difficult because you think about the Man of Steel. The Man of Steel was really not all that dark of a movie. It was actually I actually thought it was a pretty good movie, up until the very end, and we'll kind of we're gonna get into that here in a second with our number 4 question. But up until the point where Superman and Zod have their final battle, that was to me, it went in a direction I didn't expect it to go in. And they made a choice there that maybe pushed the franchises all into a darker place. With that decision, you went down a path that you really can't, you can't go. But Wonder Woman,
once John Dutton died,
right? Rip's going to be pissed. So, I watched, the Wonder Woman movie was not all that dark. There was, at least from I didn't think it was a very dark movie. I thought they did a good job on it. The Justice League, Batman versus Superman was super dark and then the Justice League movie, especially the Snyder Cut, was really, that was really crazy when they started having the flash forwards into like the future of, Superman when he's gone.
The nightmare.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't know, that was taking the comics into a place I didn't really want to go. But then you have movies like, you have Zachary Levi's Shazam, which was not dark at all. I mean, it was super light and it was super great.
The monsters were like eating people.
Yeah, yeah. Right.
Other than that scene,
whatever. Whatever you need. I thought it was great. I loved Shazam. I thought it was fun. Even the new Suicide Squad, Suicide Squad movie. But whatever my issues are with the third act of that movie, it was not too dark. It was a lot of fun, and what dark stuff you did see was really funny, like and that to me is I'm okay with that. So I don't think DC films are too dark right now, but I think if at least everything outside of Snyder, the Batman versus Superman and the Justice League stuff, they were pretty dark. But I think other stuff is out there. So it's kind of a 50-50 split for me on this one. Yeah. So,
and I would say to me, it sounds like the movies you mentioned that you liked the most were the ones that were the least dark out of the DC movies.
Yeah, they really were. And I don't think I don't think it's because I don't like the dark stuff. I don't think I'm afraid of it, but it just I don't know. I just, I grew up with Christopher Reeve's Superman. I grew up with watching reruns of the 1960s Batman, the campy Batman stuff, and
running around with the bomb.
Right.
Don't drop it on the nuns. Don't.
It's not that I want that, but when Michael Keaton came out, it was a different Batman that I'd ever seen before, and that level of darkness for a character, but there was still a lot of really good, funny scenes in that. There was a lot of good comedy in it. And I think that's where DC just misses the mark is, and we've talked about it before. They're not patient about building the characters and the universe up. Like like you said earlier, they need to commit to like a 10-year plan. And I think the fans would be fine with that. And if you want to go with a dark type universe, then I don't think the fans are going to have a hard time with it. I'm not going to have a hard time with it, but like you said, you need to commit. So yeah, I think we're in agreement. You say that they're too dark. You say they're dark. I say that they're.
I would say we disagree. I'd say there's no problem with them being dark.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't think that they're all that dark, some of them are, some of them aren't. So
I would say I think we agree they need to pick a path.
They do need to pick a path. Yeah. So
yeah, they need to pick a path.
All right. So coming off of this question,
and I'd say with that one, because it's the first one that I think we kind of agree but disagree on it.
Yeah.
And I think that'd be a good one for the comment section of what do people think on that one, since we can't come to a conclusion.
Right.
Too dark, not too dark.
Right.
I'd love to hear what people think on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, if you've got thoughts on how DC can right the ship, that's something that would be.
Listen, if they hired me, I'd fix it right now.
Yeah. But they're already not fixing the ship with the Batman stuff, because it's like, unless they're going to reboot the entire thing.
We'll see. I think a lot
of it.
Yeah. A lot of it is on this and the Flashpoint movie. That's where it all is going to happen. So we'll see. But
we'll see.
Now we can move into the next one. And
well, so like we talked about, with the Man of Steel movie, the final battle between Zod and Superman came to a pretty shocking conclusion, and it was very polarizing for a lot of fans. And we don't see it so much in this Marvel stuff as much as we, I think, do or it's not as prominent in the DC stuff, or not as prominent as it is in the DC stuff. But should superheroes kill? Morg, should they kill?
Well, that's the big dilemma, right? That's the ultimate, because everything is, once you kill, you cross that line. And this is a tough one, because we think of Batman. If he would have just killed the Joker, how many things would have been solved? How many problems there wouldn't have been? How many people would not have died if he just killed him? But then he turns into, all right, so he killed somebody. Now we get into the realm of who can be killed, who cannot be killed.
Right.
Punisher. The Punisher kills. And we're like, kill these bad guys. But where do you draw that line? If I see somebody steal $500 out of a CVS, should they kill them because they're a criminal? You know what I mean? So it's tough. This is a tough one for me, because I debate this all the time. And people, with the Ben Affleck Batman, who I think is my favorite Batman, people will complain because this is coming from
a guy who doesn't like Luke Skywalker. So just to qualify
it's not that I don't like him. It's just that he's not that great. But no, so Ben Affleck kills in that movie, as far as we're concerned. He does some damage.
Yep.
And then people always be like, well, I wish he was more like a Michael Keaton Batman, who, was a Batman that didn't kill. But then you think like, well, Michael Keaton strapped a bomb to a clown's chest.
Right.
And shoved him down the sewers to explode.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he technically, I guess, didn't kill him. But come on. So I would say, no, I think that's the one thing that truly separates a real superhero is the killing. That's why they're better, because they're a vigilante, but they still follow the law of not killing. But I'm all, oh my God, that's tough, because I'm a firm believer. If you're defending yourself, things happen, man. Like, if you gotta kill somebody, I'm not.
And that's kind of the Man of Steel dilemma. That's
exactly
the Man of Steel
because
dilemma.
I think Superman should have killed Zod way earlier.
Yeah. Yep. So and so that puts him into that position to where he really have a choice? Do you really have a choice in that situation? Like, sure, if he's able to, he basically tells him straight up, you're going to have to kill me. I'm going to kill those people there. So you make the call, and so that's what it is. So as much as I would like to live in a sweet, nice world, the superhero genre, I'd like to keep it as clean as possible, but I think there are situations where superheroes can kill villains, but I think it needs to be few and far between, you know. And I think Spider-Man, I mean, you look at like all the Spider-Man villains, you know, I don't know that it's necessarily Peter Parker that kills all these guys, but they all die fighting Spider-Man, you know. And so is Peter Parker, you know, is he a killer?
And if we get, there's some comics where Peter Parker does some things.
Yeah. And so it's like, okay, well, is he a killer, you know, or are you a killer, you know, just because the guy dies or whatever? So I don't know. I'd
say it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Like with General Zod, I'm fine with you killing him.
Yeah.
Because he's about to he's literally going to kill the whole planet.
Right.
Kill him. I'm fine with that.
Which is the part I have problems with Ben Affleck's Batman situation. You know, like if you're gonna whack the Joker, you know, like let's say in Michael Keaton's, you know, Michael Keaton's Batman movie, you know, him and the Joker go at it, stuff like that. So
get nuts.
Yeah, right.
Let's get nuts.
Never rub another man's rhubarb. I freaking love it. Jack Nicholson's so good in that, and
good. He's a great.
Him and Keaton are so good, you know, and just amazing. I
feel like we both agree that it's like
gun.
It's a yes and no.
It is a yes and no. I think, you know, when you look at the superhero killing stuff, you know, Ben Affleck's guy offing a couple of thugs, like just, you know, street thugs.
That's not right.
I can't do that, you know. But if he's trying to take out the main villain, you know, and the guy puts him in a situation where he doesn't really have much of a choice, you know, if you can be clever and work your way out of it and get the guy and you know, that type of situation, that's one thing. But you know, if he's got to kill, so I don't have a problem with superheroes killing. I really don't. I think just depends on the situation. So I will say the Punisher, I don't believe is a superhero, if you will. He's an anti-hero. So
he's an anti-hero.
Yes. All right. So
he's a guy with a gun that doesn't give an F.
Right. Moving on to
what we got next.
So we said. So are we split on that one then, or are we in agreement? I have swayed you. My argument has swayed
I think you are. I think we're in agreement in the sense that you need a superhero that knows when it's appropriate, when it goes, hey, all these people are going to die. Kill the guy that's going to do it. I don't care.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So I win on that one. Great. Thanks for admitting that.
To you.
All right. All right. So moving along, controversially, there have been statements from some fairly prominent directors in cinema,
like Scorsese,
Martin Scorsese, to be specific.
Is he a known director?
He's done some stuff.
He's done some stuff. Okay.
Yeah, he's done some stuff. So he does not believe that comic book movies are real cinema. You know, so we have a kind of a debate of comic book movies versus cinema movies. You know, and we're talking Scorsese. So I mean, the guy is a tremendous filmmaker. You know, but is this a case of some, you know, Rotten Tomatoes type stuff where he's just upset because, you know, maybe one of his movies didn't do quite as well, and you know, because his movies aren't making $1 billion, you know, versus like say Endgame or something like that. You know, he watches that and he thinks, oh geez, this is not real. This is not a real movie. But right. So I don't know. What do you think? Comic book movies, are they cinema or not?
So yeah, you know, that's a tough one because I can see where like a Scorsese or some of the other well-known directors are coming from. Where, I mean, Captain America Civil War is not Goodfellas.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not Godfather. It's not The Departed. But when I watch a movie, I want to watch a movie to be entertained.
Yeah.
Whether that's Goodfellas. I love my gangster and my mob movies. I love that stuff. whether superhero movies. I love that stuff. So for me, cinema has a different meaning. It's just something that's written and directed in a movie where I know I'm going to go and have fun and I'm going to enjoy it and I'm going to walk out going, I'm glad I watched that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I feel about it. So I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say they are the same. Comic book movies and cinema are the same.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I agree with you on that as well. So I do believe that comic book movies are and cinema are on par with one another, because I for the exact reason you said. So The Departed is a tremendous movie. Tremendous movie. Cast is fantastic, straight,
Yes.
Top to bottom. Cast is amazing. Plot's great. Pacing's great. Just awesome all the way through. Loved that movie. It's one of my favorite movies. But that doesn't preclude me from enjoying Endgame.
Exactly.
And I don't see a difference between those two types of movies, because does Scorsese then say that comedy movies like Major League or are those not real movies too? Because what's your definition of then like a real movie? Like, does it have to be a drama? Like, how about you make a movie that's not a mob movie?
Right.
There are other stories to tell, Martin, that aren't related to the mob. And
I think a little bit of it is there's a little bit of jealousy in that.
Yeah,
in the sense that, like, for me, I don't go to the theaters anymore unless I know it's going to be a big blockbuster I want to see on the screen. Yeah. Which happens to be a lot of the comic book movies, because there's going to be a lot of big action and fighting. I want to see that. Whereas the Godfather, Goodfellas, that's that type of movie. I love those, but I don't need to see it on the big screen. I can watch that on my TV.
Yeah. Well, and especially with TVs nowadays, I mean, everybody's got a 65-inch screen in their living room, which is gigantic and stuff. So, it's like I said, with all due respect to Martin Scorsese, I think he's wrong. I think comic book movies have their place in cinema, alongside of his stuff. No doubt that his guys are going to get nominations for awards and stuff like that. They're because the performances that they put in and the writing and the directing and the music and all that stuff is really, really tremendous, but not everybody's into that story, not exactly. like the comic book stuff's appeal to everybody, from you and I have boys who are, that are young boys and stuff. And I can take my 6-year-old to go see a Spider-Man movie, and I don't have to worry about Joe Pesci smashing some guy's forehead in with an ashtray, and saying the F word every 10 seconds, right. Yeah. Cause he is funny, he looks like a clown. So, and so, right. So like I said, with all due respect to Martin Scorsese, I think he's wrong. I really do. I think the comic movies have stuff. So we're in agreement on that.
We're in agreement on that one.
All right. So this next one's going to be difficult. I don't think this is going to be a hard one, because it's going to be book or movie. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer the book or do you prefer the movie? Now let's get this out of the way first. Do you know how to read? So
it depends.
Are you a pamphlet?
I'm like a Charlie Kelly from It's Always Sunny as far as how to read. So that's a no.
Right.
No. So this is
right.
Oh
right.
Man, we're going to debate this one.
Yep.
So my answer is I prefer movie.
Yeah. I'm a book guy. I really am. I really do prefer the books over movies. In some instances, there is stuff that I'm so glad that they did convert them into movies, because a lot more people will enjoy. A lot of people already enjoyed it. So I'm specifically staring at Harry Potter, I'm giving an example of, I'll give the example of Harry Potter. Millions of people read J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter and
My wife
loved
has
it,
a great collection of it.
Yep. And got people who maybe, and again, and I'm not even like a witchcraft type person, like that's never been interesting to me at all, but she told such a wonderful story really about a boy, who's, doesn't know that doesn't know he has any powers. And then all of a sudden kind of comes into it. And it's just, yeah, right. And so for me, the book was just tremendous. It really was tremendous. And then, and I actually came to that series first through the movies, and then and then I read the books. So I started reading the books when book number 5 had come out in the theaters, which is the Order of the Phoenix, the book Order of the Phoenix, or the movie Order of the Phoenix had come out. So that's when I had gotten to started with the series. And so I went back and I read everything, to that point, and then finished the series. And there's a richness and a depth, and to some extent over indulging in certain things that takes place in the books that you don't get in the movies. They gloss over a lot of stuff in the movies. And I think, I think that's the advantage to the book, is that and in some instances, I will make a counter, I will kind of counter my own argument with certain authors, specifically a guy who will never finish the Game of Thrones franchise. But
that SOB.
Yeah. So that guy's never going to finish that series. So, but I read the first book in that group, and I liked it. I started reading the second one, and the guy just he overwrites stuff, there's too much stuff in there where you're like,
I'm in the second one now. Daenerys is still like traveling through the desert and stuff.
And it's just dumb. It's just dumb, and you're like, you're focusing on details that nobody cares about. Like, I don't give a crap about the threading and the stitches and the tunic and all this other nonsense. Like, nobody cares about that stuff. Let's move on. Your publisher said you needed 1,000 pages, and so you're filling 12 pages of this crap, and it's
like, when I would write a book report.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's just stupid. So there are good and bad things, but I firmly believe that the books are usually better than the movies. A lot of the times what I will do, especially like the Tom Clancy novels, when they converted a lot of the Tom Clancy stuff, because I was a big Clancy reader and I loved his stuff. A lot of it, my viewpoint was that the movie happens to have the same title and may have the same character in there. The main character will be in it, but that's where the similarities stop, So The Hunt for Red October was good. It's way different from the book. The book is way better, but I understand that people can't look at that book and go, I don't have time for that. I don't have the time or the patience. Right. So I'll watch Sean Connery talk to me, pretend to be a Ukrainian guy who has a Scottish accent.
And the thing with movies too is you can go see the movie, enjoy it, and you don't need to take the time to read the book.
Yeah.
To you know what I mean? Like you said, with books, you get the insight of what people are thinking. With the movies, you don't. But I can go I watched all the Harry Potters. I enjoyed them.
Yep.
I don't need to read the books. I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't argue against that. It allows, the movies allow people to digest certain franchises, certain characters and stuff like that they may never have been able to do before. I will say we could twist this just up a little bit, and instead of just saying book or screen, and change it to screen, because I do believe I do believe that maybe the best thing to have happened to books and stuff like that when they want to convert them into the screen is let's say Band of Brothers. When they went with, it's not a mini series because it's 10 hours of television,
Right.
And Game of Thrones kind of fell into that as well, where it's like, okay, people will tune in if you tell a 10-hour story, if you tell it right, if you do the budget right, if you have the characters properly done, people will watch that. People who are big fans of this franchise or big fans of this book series, and then you can actually give, you still can't do everything page for page, but you can still do a really good job of telling a pretty in-depth story in a good amount of time. So I think movies, I don't think converting a book to a movie is a good idea. I really don't. I think maybe converting a book to these TV series is a better way to go about doing it. So, I have not read Stephen King's The Stand, and I understand. I did watch the new series that they did recently and stuff, and I hear it's okay, but again, it's I would never read that book, but I'll watch that. I'll watch that.
I decided to read a 1,000-page book right now.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. So, all right. So where do we sit?
I think we disagree. I think I'd prefer the movie over the book.
Yeah. And I think I'm more of a book guy, although I do lean towards the small screen. If you do the small screen stuff right, maybe putting it out on like HBO Max or something like that. I think maybe we could find some common ground there. So
I think we could on that. I'd prefer it to be a long format show.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to question number 7, and this one's kind of a fun one. So, to reboot or not to reboot? So recently, I think we were talking about Lethal Weapon and how they're going to go back to the well again on that one and give us another sequel. We just had the Matrix Resurrections, whatever it is.
Juvenation. I don't know.
We've had the Terminator debacles, where they've this latest Disney Star Wars stuff, and controversially among the Star Trek fans, is the Chris Pine stuff, is that really Star Trek or is that something else? Yeah. Right. So to reboot or not to reboot? What do you think?
So I say I would go with no. And are we counting sequels into this as a part of the reboot?
Well, I think we'll talk about sequels next. Okay. I think
I'd say reboot is not needed. I would say a reboot is not needed for a good movie.
Yeah.
If it is a horrible movie that you could reboot and make a good movie, go ahead. But when you have like Back to the Future, I don't need that rebooted. I'm good with that. I'm done with that. I'm good with the way it is done.
Right.
That's not something I need rebooted.
So what about a movie, and I'll give you an example. So what about a movie that a lot of people adore, but not a lot of people saw it, when it came out, or for some reason it just didn't take off, but the franchise is there. So I'm specifically talking about The Rocketeer, which I love that movie. Like I love the Rocketeer.
I love the Rocketeer.
And and it's a movie I think a lot of people
gun in the tank.
Yeah, right. I mean it's great. Timothy Dalton is your bad guy. I mean, how do you go wrong with that? That's just awesome. So I think, do you reboot that series? Like, I mean, do you because again,
it's tough because I know they're doing that.
Yeah.
And I want to see it.
Right.
But that falls in that category of, I like it because of the memories I have of it, but realistically, it's not a great movie.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So rebooting it can be a good thing. Whereas if you're like, you know what, we did the Lord of the Rings trilogy, let's reboot it.
Yeah.
Why? You know what I mean? Like, there's just certain things that just should not be rebooted.
Yeah. Are you going to do better than Peter Jackson?
Exactly. Like really, what are you going to do different?
Yeah.
Unless you make them 10-hour movies.
Or you do the soft reboot with that one, which is what they did with The Hobbit. It's like, oh, well, we're not making the Lord of the Rings. We're making this whole other.
I watched the first Hobbit.
Yeah.
Did not care to watch the other ones.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, the next question we'll get into that type of stuff. And I think that'll be one of our examples, but so are you in the camp of reboot or not reboot then?
I'd say I'm in the camp of not rebooting.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I am I'm in the same boat. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to tell you, let's not reboot that thing. Like that. Let's just leave that where it is and let's tell a different story. I think we've got a lot of different stories to tell. We've got a lot of different things that we can kind of go about and there's a lot more stories to tell, a lot more new characters that we can build off of. I think, and I hate it. Like, I hate how lazy production houses and writers and all that stuff are right now. They are hitting this nostalgia, anything that they can find that may have been a hit at some point, or had people watching it. They're like, hey, we're gonna resurrect this franchise. We're gonna resurrect this, and touch it, touch it up and put some new lipstick on it and some new drywall, and here we go, and it's like, come on, it's just bad. So I think we're in agreement. The reboot needs to die, and it needs to die quickly. So,
yes.
All right. So kind of dovetailing off of the reboot stuff is a question that you and I kind of kicked around between the two of us, which was, should this have been a franchise, or should we have gotten more of what, my main example is The Matrix. The original Matrix movie. I know that people liked Reloaded, and I know that they liked Revolutions, and all that. Honestly, if they had left it at the first one, I would have been perfectly fine with that and never thought twice about. Like, I mean, I know he like flies off and, at the end it's like, oh, we're, has that phone call and then he flies off, and it's just like, that's a cool way to end. It's like, all right, man, and then we get Rage Against the Machine, who are pretty interesting nowadays, but I
don't rage against the machine.
Yeah, I fully support the machine now.
And I agree with you. I think the Matrix is a prime example of that, whereas that ended with, when they filmed it, they ended it with the first Matrix of, this is the end. This is going to be the end.
Yeah.
And I was fine with that because it was, is he the one? Is he not the one?
Yeah.
And he becomes the one. Done.
Yeah.
So they decided to make the trilogy out of it. And then they made the new pile of garbage that they made.
Right.
And anybody that tries to argue with you that it's good is wrong.
Yeah.
Because they tried to do the nostalgia, except they did the way they did the nostalgia was, we'll just show clips from the old movies.
Yeah.
Like, no, I didn't like that. They changed characters. The great thing about that movie was the awesome fighting.
Yeah.
And Neo didn't need to fight anymore. He could just force push people away.
Right. Yeah.
And we know he can do this stuff because he did John Wick. So we know he can hold his own.
Right. Yeah.
So it was just, I didn't need that.
Yeah.
Now with franchises, is a trilogy a franchise? Or are we talking past that? You know, what is a franchise? Like Furious is a franchise now.
Sure. Yeah. And if you ask me, no, but apparently lots and lots of people love the Fast and the Furious franchise, you know, and so I'm in the minority on that one.
I enjoy
it. And you know, it is what it is. And I just don't find it interesting at all.
It's not cinema.
Yeah, right. I don't like, I guess I have a problem. I just am not a big Vin Diesel fan, you know, and I don't.
You're not family.
My buddy DJ is not a fan of Vin Diesel. You know, they have some problems, and so DJ's got a problem with Vin Diesel. I've got a problem with Vin Diesel. So
yeah,
it's just how I roll. You know, DJ's my boy. So I you know, but we talk about like so great kind of question there. Lord of the Rings, I think, falls into that because you know, the Lord of the Rings franchise, the original trilogy isn't a franchise. You know, it's the progression of the 3 books. You know, you have the 3 books that are there, and so when you're done telling those 3 stories, you're done telling those 3 stories, and that's where it stops. You know, but when it becomes a franchise when you get The Hobbit, you know, and now you're getting Amazon's Lord of the Rings and stuff. And so should this be a franchise? You know, The Hobbit was not good. You know, we've talked about this before. All with all due respect to Jen Tiedemann and her son, you know, we're not Hobbit fans here, and we don't really like that section of, you know, that franchise. We'll see if Amazon can save, you know, that and make it maybe build a franchise out of it. But you know, Terminator is another one, I think, where the more Terminator we get, the worse it gets, you know, and it keeps going further and further down. It's like, should this really be a franchise anymore? It really shouldn't. Let's just put this to bed. Even some of the, you know, don't tell my son, but you know, the Transformer movies, you know, the first one was fun. The second one was a garbage movie. You know, the third one was much better, you know, really was much better, but everything since has been rough. The Bumblebee movie was actually,
I heard that was good, but I feel like it has to be, when you make the first, you have to outline you're doing a trilogy, you're doing a whatever.
Right.
You know, if you're just like, I'm making the first, again, I go back to the Matrix, like they clearly made the first going, this is the only movie we're making.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
And then it was a hit.
Right.
So they were like, let's do it. No, you got to go to like, listen, we're doing a trilogy. Christopher Nolan's Batman, we're doing a trilogy. Done, and it's over. Yeah. And I think, I think you have to be very careful with the franchise stuff. You know, I know that people look in and they go, oh, we got a cash cow. Let's milk this thing for everything it's worth, you know? So this went really well the first round. So all we need to do is we need to change the characters around a little bit. We'll adjust the plot, but we're really just going to rehash exactly what we gave you in the first movie, in the second movie, and then on to the third, you know? And that's why usually these series just get progressively worse and worse. Yes.
And like I said, Terminator is a prime example of that. You know, the Terminator was great. Terminator 2 was really great, but it backed them into a corner with a lot of stuff. The Terminator 2 backed them into a corner with a lot of different stuff. And so Terminator 3 was not good. You know, Terminator 4, I guess, with Christian Bale was okay, except for the last act was kind of bad. And then, you know, the other two have just been garbage. We got a decent TV show out of it, but that was about it. So, so franchises, you have to be careful. I think that's the lesson on this one, franchises. So, all right. So we'll kind of lighten things up next. This one is a big nerd debate. And I think this we'll talk about age. Sega versus Nintendo. Sega versus Nintendo. Were you a Genesis? Did you ever have a Genesis? No, was that before your?
I really wanted the Sega handheld.
Yeah.
But no, I was always a Nintendo guy.
Yeah.
Nintendo kid. Whatever you want to call it.
We could say Nintendo versus the world. Like what, you know, we could to kind of, because, you know, you're either a PlayStation guy or an Xbox guy or a Nintendo guy. I mean, because the PlayStation was out when you had your Nintendo, right?
Yeah.
It was the first PlayStation. Yeah. And you were a Nintendo guy?
The first console we ever owned in my house, it was for my older sister. It was the NES.
Yeah.
But I played it more. And then I got the Super NES, then N64, you know, it progressed.
Yeah.
So I never got into the Sega world. I'm a fan of what Sega did and the stuff they produced, like, I mean, the big one, Sonic. But I would say Nintendo, hands down, is the winner in this category. Yeah. I think they have the most overall hits. They have the most power behind them. They've done a lot. So I would say Nintendo wins in this category. And I'm a little biased because I've always had Nintendo.
Yeah. Yeah. And I had, we had the NES, and then we got the Genesis when it came out. And I loved it. You know, like I loved playing the game Killer Instinct, was awesome. Mortal Kombat, you know, that stuff was, I think we had Mortal Kombat on the Genesis. You know, you just had some great stuff. So originally the Nintendo, the NES was just awesome. I mean, and I loved it. It was really great. And then we moved to the Genesis, then we moved to the PlayStation. So I did not return to Nintendo until the Wii. Like after the NES, I never came back to Nintendo until I got to the Wii. Now I did play Nintendo 64. I did play some GoldenEye. Don't get me wrong. I would go over to my friend's house and play some serious GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 because that was the first like kind of cool multiplayer game, you know, that you could really play and like hunt your friends and stuff. So you know, GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 was pretty awesome. I think looking back on the, you know, kind of the Nintendo versus the world type stuff, and Nintendo, it just has some just tremendous, what's the word I'm looking for as far as like properties, you know, Mario, Luigi, Zelda, you know, all that stuff.
There's so much.
Yeah. Donkey Kong. I mean, just so many great characters, you know, that people know and love. You know, and they've brought even newer ones, you know, Peach and, you know, and all that stuff that they've, my favorite is Wario. Like I absolutely love Wario, you know, so whenever we play,
my Luigi.
Yeah. Whenever we play, a Mario Kart, you know, dad's always Wario, you know, the kids are like, why are you always Wario? You know?
I always pet Toad.
Yeah. So I think, you know, although I did have all these other things, I think Nintendo has outlasted just about everybody. You know, they're really the only ones still standing as PlayStation. Right. You know, they're the only ones that are still standing that's against them, but they didn't start out at the same time. You know, Nintendo is the king. So I think we both agree. I think Nintendo's where it's at. So, all right. So last question, our top 10, the best Marvel Chris. Who do you think is the best Marvel Chris? Is it Chris Pratt? Is it Chris Hemsworth or Chris Evans? Now, I want to say that our dear leader,
bias in this.
I was going to say, I think our dear leader would probably give a nod to Chris Evans.
Yeah.
Because of his love affair with the Cap.
Yeah, he's so up Cap's butt. It doesn't count. Yeah. Oh, this is tough. I got to go with. I have to say, I'm going with this. I got to break it down logically.
Yeah,
Chris Hemsworth.
Okay,
because I think he's the best at portraying the character he's supposed to be.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's why he's the best. Now, for me, out of all of them who I'd like to get a beer with, Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
But Hemsworth, I think, is the best at the look, the feel. I would believe him to be a Thor.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you. I think Hemsworth, I am going to disagree with you. I think Pratt is the best Marvel Chris, but I will say Hemsworth's Thor character has only gotten better as the franchises as the Marvel movies have gone on. You know, that first couple Thor movies and even the Avengers, he was not all that interesting of a character, you know, like there was not a lot to him. And it just wasn't interesting. You know, the movies were not good. But as time has gone on, he's gotten better. And then, man, when Taika Waititi hit with Ragnarok, it changed him from something, just completely changed him, you know. And I actually, you know, kind of back up to it's not a throwaway scene, but it's an interesting scene because you do get to see Thor in a different light. The scene in Avengers Age of Ultron, where they're all kind of sitting around having drinks and they're all trying to pick up Thor's hammer, you know, and Cap grabs it and it moves, you know, it moves just slightly. And all of a sudden you see this flash of concern on Hemsworth's face, you know, just ever so briefly, you know, where he's like, well, you know, and then he's more relaxed, you know, but I think that was a huge moment for that character. And then, you know, when Ragnarok came around and then, you know, and then Endgame and Infinity War, you know, both, I think he just was really, really great in those. So Hemsworth is pretty good. I think it's a good choice. I'm going to go with Chris Pratt again. And I think just from the very get-go, that character was super endearing, super lovable, you know, and Chris Pratt plays that character. He's hilarious, you know, even that opening scene where he's just dancing, you know, and kicking those things around, and you're like just right from the very get-go. He is really, really great. Chris Pratt. He's got, there's a lot of range in there, even though you don't see it. He's super insecure, you know, like you can see he's very insecure about certain stuff. You know, and so I am curious to see how him and Hemsworth will play against each other, you know, as the Asgardians of the Galaxy kind of moving along. So it's going to be really good. But yeah, I'm going to go with Chris Pratt as my favorite Marvel. I can respect it. I can respect that. And I think, and I tend to agree with you. I would have a beer with Pratt or Hemsworth both. You know, I would love, and even Evans. You know, I mean, I think no. Yeah, I mean, realistically, I'd hang out with any of them. Don't get me wrong. I think it'd be pretty fun. So, but yeah, Pratt, Hemsworth, and Evans is my three. So anyhow, Morg, thanks so much for joining me today. This has been a blast. I know it's super late for you, buddy. But it's only 1:17 a.m. But it's not bad. I've had a great time on the Nerd Rundown Presents with you. It's always a pleasure. It's always fun. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you would smash the like button on the video, hit subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment. And we covered a lot of stuff today. So, you know, if you've got reactions to what we talked about, if you've got different opinions, Give them to us. Let's hear it. I want to hear it.
I assume everyone's opinion is going to be the same as mine. So
right. Yeah. Well, naturally, and I'm married, so I'm wrong all the time as it is. So that's just I'm used to it. I'm used to being wrong. But anyhow, thanks everybody so much for tuning in. We really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next week on the Nerd Rundown Presents. See ya.
Deuces.